Hello, boils and ghouls, freaks and geeks, creepers of all ages. I hope you've been well since my last episode. It's almost been a year. But I'd say this episode was long overdue. I've been sitting on a few projects recently, especially a few projects with the podcast. I've been writing scripts without ever any hopes of recording them until now. But as I was going through my files of scripts that I have written, I came across one that kind of stuck out to me as one that I want to try to do today. So as of the time I'm recording this, I have just finished the script. I'm actually at the recording studio now. So hopefully this episode does well, because if this episode does well, I'm going to continue making more episodes of the podcast. I'm going to take a break from only uploading music, because the last few uploads I've made have all been music or memes or something. And so I'm going to take a small break from that, try and focus on the podcast, because that is the whole reason why I changed the channel from Darth Nate to Midnight Sideshow. But with that being said, I hope you're all comfortable. I hope you're all having a great day. Without further ado, let's get into this episode. Now, this episode is one that I've had on a shelf basically pretty much for the last few weeks. But I figured, why not start off the resurgence of this podcast with a video about some of the true things that inspired horror, and specifically with one movie in particular for this episode, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, creepers of all ages. Sorry, I'm reading through a few notes I have before we get the episode started. But before we get the episode started, I have some house cleaning measures to attend to. For those of you who have stuck around on my YouTube channel through the many years, almost 2 decades now, that I've been recording for YouTube, you've seen how different my uploads have been, especially since I first started. Because when I first started, I was just a kid. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know what all would be popular. And in fact, I'm pretty sure most of my subscribers were just my friends from school who were trying to make fun of me behind my back. But nevertheless, I hope all my subscribers are going to enjoy this episode, especially the ones who have joined since I started doing more horror-focused content, as horror is such an important thing to me, and I know for many other people it is an important thing for them as well. So thank you to my subscribers for making this possible. If it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't have a reason to keep uploading. But I also want to thank my followers and viewers on Twitch, because I stream on Twitch at Midnight Sideshow or Midnight_Sideshow on Twitch. I usually do gaming streams. Sometimes I'll do streams with my uncle, who also does the Twitch streaming. He actually just got his first sponsor, so big ups to him, But I also want to address the fact that this episode will have some sensitive content and other things that might be triggering to some people. I know when I roll the intro, a lot of that has flashing lights, so if you're epileptic, this is your warning now to maybe skip this episode, and maybe in the future I'll try and make the intro a little less flashy. No, I will, because I don't want to lose viewers just because I can't, But this will also be possibly one of the more triggering episodes, as we're going to be covering topics such as illness, death, and certain religious topics, as well as certain occult topics, which I have no problem with. But if you are going to be triggered by any of those topics, again, this might be your chance to skip the video. But with that being said, let's get into this first episode. Real life inspirations of famous horror movies, part 1, Late Night with the Devil. Before we get into the horror and true crime aspects, as well as true other things of Late Night with the Devil, I'm going to start this episode by explaining some of the late night influences in this movie. Because, a movie called Late Night with the Devil, obviously that's an homage to late night TV shows, which is a uniquely American thing I've learned, which is kind of fun, but at the same time, it's strange that the U.S. is mostly known for it. But anyway, if you've seen the movie, you know that the first reference to late night TV is Johnny Carson, because the whole movie is a catalyst. Well, not a catalyst. The whole plot is mostly derived from Jack Delroy, the main character and host of the UBC late night show Night Owls in this movie. He's often seen trying to get better ratings than Johnny Carson, who at the time, Johnny Carson had been hosting the late night Tonight Show since 1962, and he actually ended his reign on the Tonight Show in 1992, an almost 30-year reign where he was the main host. And I believe after that it was taken over by Jay Leno, I want to say, and then it went to Conan, then Jay Leno again. And then I'm pretty sure Jimmy Fallon took it over, if that's the right show I'm thinking of. But anyway, throughout the movie, Carson is mentioned as kind of being a thorn in Jack Delroy's side, always being higher in the ratings than Jack Delroy is, and always being the late night king. And throughout the film, it's mentioned the rivalry that they have. And skipping ahead into the intro, or into more of the intro, I should say, we see Jack's co-host, Gus. Now, Gus is a very particular character. I actually really like Gus. I think he's very endearing, and I almost feel bad for him throughout the whole movie. No, I don't almost feel bad for him. I do feel bad for him, because he's kind of like a punching bag. And I think one of the influences, and I believe if you know late night, you've probably seen Conan a couple times, but Andy Richter is kind of like the real life version of Gus, where he's kind of more of a punching bag for jokes on Conan's show, like Gus is on Jack Delroy's show. And he's mostly there for the laugh. We also meet Jack Delroy's wife in the intro, and I couldn't find an exact influence for her character. I wanted to go ahead and say that it was possibly a reference to Sharon Tate, but Sharon Tate wasn't killed by cancer. She was murdered by the Manson family cult, which we'll get into that whole later. But what I do find is an influence for his wife's death is, if you know David Dastmalchian, or if you've been doing research on him after the movie came out, he has been stated as saying that period where Jack is completely like reclusive, doesn't want anything to do with the limelight, doesn't want anything to do with being on TV anymore after his wife dies. Apparently, according to David Dastmalchian, this was a very personal thing for him because he was going through that exact thing, not exactly losing his wife as far as I'm aware. I'm thinking he was just going through a really bad depression. But it makes it a little more emotional when you realize that is exactly how he was feeling at the time before Late Night with the Devil came out and before he hit it big. Just another side tangent, I much like David Dastmalchian, I've gone through my own creative things where I've been wanting to stay away from the limelight and stuff. So as someone who has gone through that, it does hit very personally. So anyway, side tangent over, back to the main show. But finally, I'm going to run and gun through the last few late night influences in this new segment of the podcast that I am going to call the Midnight Carousel.
Welcome to the Midnight Carousel. Hold on tight and try not to fall. It's a hell of a ride.
Alright, so here's how this works. I'm going to rapid fire off some references that may or may not be real as the carousel spins. Your job is to figure out which one is real and jump off the carousel hoping it's right. At the end of each guess, I'll tell you if it was real or not. Ready? Alright, go.
Round 1.
Alright, so the carousel's going to spin slower first. Question 1. The woman in black who is seen berating Jack in the intro of the movie is based off of a real clip with Madonna and David Letterman on their show. True or false? Choose wisely.
Time's up.
If you guess true, you are correct. It is based on a scene from, I forget what episode of David Letterman's Tonight Show, or Late Night Show, I don't know if it was the Tonight Show, but basically, Madonna was being very vulgar, and basically this whole clip in the intro of Late Night with the Devil is an homage to that, which that video is holy to some people. I love it, so, yeah. Anyway, on to round 2.
Round 2. Carousel is spinning faster. Better hold on.
Question 2. The character of Carmichael Haig in the movie is based off of a real-life skeptic in the aspect of the paranormal, who also used to be a magician. Choose your answer wisely, and don't lose your head.
Time's up. I see some of you flying off. Better hold on tight, 'cause that one was also true.
Yes, as my creepy co-host said, that one is also true. Carmichael Haig in the movie Late Night with the Devil is based off of famous skeptic and former magician James Randi, who used to go around on late night circuits as well as on other shows debunking the paranormal. And actually, in one case, on a late night show in Australia, he was actually booed off the stage. Or actually, I think that was Letterman as well, wasn't it? Co-host, what do you think?
I think it was, but I've spent years in this pit, so I'm not sure if I'm up to my pop culture references.
Well, either way, viewers, it was true. So if you said true, you better hold on, because round 3, the lightning round, is going to be faster than lightning. So hold on tight, or you might just go flying off.
Round 3, the lightning round. Final spin. Hold on tight.
Alright, final question. The company that Jack signs his contract to is called UBC, which was a real TV channel that is now defunct. True or false? Better hope you answer this right. It just might be your last answer.
Time's up. If you haven't guessed, put in your last answer now, or you'll join me in the pit.
The final answer is false. UBC was never a real channel. It was just made up for the movie. For those who are still on, consider yourselves lucky. Thanks for playing.
So, it looks like you've survived the Midnight Carousel. Next time you won't be so lucky.
Alright. Well, thank you to my co-host, Mr. Boogedy, for joining me for that segment. I hope you had fun. I figured it would be a fun thing to add into the podcast, make it a little more inclusive. Well, not inclusive, but like more fun. Anyway, we're now into part 2 of this episode. But before we continue on with this episode, I want to make a plug to my Patreon. I've been working on setting up a Patreon for a while now for the YouTube and for Twitch and all that. And I finally got it up and running. So if you want to support me, if you want to support the channel, and if you want to support everyone here at Nocturnal Sideshow Productions, the company that owns this podcast, that is also my company, feel free to donate. Subscriptions go as low as $1 a month with a free 7-month trial of subscriptions if you don't have the money. But it can. I plan to use the money for bettering the podcast and making my recording studio a little more accessible, and making sure that I can actually get to the recording studio and everything. So if you feel like you want to help out and you want to donate a little bit of money, check out patreon.com/Nocturnal Sideshow Entertainment, and I hope I will see you there. Alright, so now we're getting into part 2 of this podcast, or at least this episode, which is about the influence of the Satanic Panic on Late Night with the Devil. As most of you can guess, if you've seen the movie or if you were around for the latter half of the 70s through to the 80s, you may be familiar with the term or the concept of the Satanic Panic. It was a real-life phenomenon where for years, and even still today, many people would claim anything and everything was satanic and out to get their kids, whether it was video games, Dungeons and Dragons, toys, movies, hell, even music had a bit of a satanic panic in it. That actually led to, I believe it was either Twisted Sister or Def Leppard, to appear in Congress to basically prove there were no subliminal messages in any of their music, like any normal, rational person would understand. Sorry, I get a little iffy on the Satanic Panic. Mainstream interests were also considered satanic by some church groups and politicians who wanted to ban things like that, hence the metal bands going to Congress to prove there was no subliminal messaging. The influence of the Satanic Panic is shown in the opening credits of Late Night with the Devil, when they show off serial killers such as Charles Manson and the Son of Sam, where both killers were highly considered part of the Satanic Panic because they ran their own. Well, in Charles Manson's case, he ran his own cult Son of Sam, his story was that he was told by a demonic dog to kill people in his name. And even like clips of rituals and stuff that satanic sects, Sects, if I spelled that right. My pronunciation isn't the greatest right now, sorry about that. But the influence of the Satanic Panic is made even more clear when you look at the movie when it introduces the group known as the Grove, which has a real-life inspiration, the Bohemian Grove, which is often questioned as being a cult where some of the most rich and powerful men in our world hang out amongst the tall trees in the redwood forest and supposedly conduct occult rituals, though most people in the group tend to say it's more of a summer camp for the rich and famous. Conversely, in Late Night with the Devil, the grove that is in the movie is shown to be an actual cult that gave Jack his stardom through possibly the demon Abraxas, which we'll get back to him. But Abraxas, as Carmichael Haig points out in the movie, is the influence for the magician's favorite spell, abracadabra. Yes, that is truly where the phrase abracadabra comes from. Look it up. But another influence on the film specifically is with a cult that is shown in the movie and their leader, Xander Diabo, who is based on real-life author of the Satanic Bible and founder of the Satanic Church, Anton LaVey, which you should suspect an episode coming based on him soon, hopefully, if I can, get it out without being open fire upon. This is the part where I would normally give folks a spoiler warning, though, even though I already spoiled most things. But for those who still want to see this movie, and I guarantee you're gonna want to see this movie, because it is one of the best movies to come out of 2024, in my opinion. But anyway, if you don't want it spoiled, please maybe skip the rest of this episode, and I'll probably leave another warning on the screen saying that if you do not wish to have this spoiled, click away now. But we're going to get into a quick breakdown of the movie, and I mean quick breakdown.
Spoiler section. Better watch out.
Alright, for those who are still here and have seen this movie, the bulk of it is shown as a mockumentary, or if you don't know what a mockumentary is, it's a false documentary, or not real documentary, fake documentary, that's the word I'm looking for. But it's supposed to be a mockumentary about the last episode of UBC's Night Owls with Jack Delroy, a Halloween episode where they have many guests that dive into the world of the paranormal. The first guest is a charlatan named Christu, who pretends to have psychic powers, and at the end of his readings, he fails all of them, except for one, which it's later revealed that he basically tricked the family. But then finally, after that one, he has a for real life psychic connection, and basically screams out, saying, Minnie, who will accept? I see an unmarried man with a wedding ring. And we find out later that Minnie was Jack Delroy's private nickname for his girlfriend. But that's not important right now. Keep that in mind, actually. It is important, just not right at this moment. Towards the end of his last reading, he does have a brain hemorrhage and ends up dying, being the first fatality on the set of the last episode of Night Owls. This is one of the first of many signs that the broadcast is going to go wrong, besides a few other minor things, such as glitches and artifacting in the footage. But after that, he brings in Carmichael Haig, while Christu's still alive, he brings in Carmichael Haig, and he lays into him, and Christu is not having it. He feels sick. He says something's not right. And he full-on exorcist pea soups Carmichael Haig all over his smug face and blazer, except it's black bile instead of the pea soup green. And so Christou gets carted off to an ambulance and dies of a brain hemorrhage off screen. Then, after Christou is dead, he invites his next guest, Dr. June Ross Mitchell, and the subject of her book, Lily, who Lily was a member, or well, not member, she was somehow affiliated with the cult of Abraxas that I mentioned earlier. And often she has these psychic phenomena where she has, as Dr. June Ross Mitchell puts it, psychic infestation, or as a normal person would say, demonic possession. And right away, Lily is like way different from any of the creepy kids in most horror movies. Like, she's a lot older than most of them are, and her voice shows it too, with kind of more of a puberty, craggly voice, which I think is a good take, or a good difference from the usual creepy kids we see in horror. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. But basically, there's an homage to The Exorcist in the movie, in which Dr. June Ross Mitchell shows off Lily's powers for the live studio audience on TV, and it kind of has an homage to The Exorcist in the clip where it goes, Jack and June went up the hill to fuck each other's brains out. Jack and June went up the hill, and then they bleep it to bleep each other's brains out. Which the funny thing is, they weren't expecting it the first time, but the second time they were ready with that censor button, which I find funny. But anyway, basically, Carmichael is doubting Lily is actually possessed, and maybe she's just hypnotized by June Ross Mitchell. So in order to show how it was possible for her to hypnotize her, he hypnotizes the whole audience and Jack Delroy into thinking that this side host or co-host, Gus, is being ripped apart by worms. And it is one of the most nasty scenes I have ever seen in a horror movie that wasn't a low-budget crap fest. Because sometimes those low-budget horror movies can get me. Like, I remember back in the day, there was this one horror movie. I forget what it was called. It was like I Dare You to Watch or something. And something about the effects they had in that film just, it grossed me out. And that's coming from someone who is not grossed out by most gore in movies. But basically he hypnotizes Gus, and so June Ross Mitchell, obviously, I'm gonna keep calling her June Ross Mitchell. I'm just gonna call her June. Dr. June, she says, no, I did not hypnotize Lily, and here's the proof. And they play the proof on tape, and for everyone to see, the tape doesn't change from what they saw earlier. It is the exact same possession that they were seeing live. And so, eventually, it gets to the point where Carmichael's like, "Oh, you gotta be messing with us! You sent me here to basically screw me over and make me look like a fool." And then, it happens. A lightning bolt shoots out of Lily's arm, and it's dragging her towards the TV. And then another one shoots into her other arm, and it's pulling her towards the heavens, as if there's a literal tug of war between heaven and hell happening over this little girl. And there's a callback to an earlier scene where Gus was telling Carmichael Haig when he was going to hypnotize him, "I hope you don't make my head spin," or something like that. And that's how he dies, is his head spins around 180, broken neck, he falls through a table, and the effect isn't the greatest. I'll be the first to admit that. This movie does have great effects in certain parts, but others, it looks CGI as hell. And it's very obvious. And then June, she gets almost decapitated by her crucifix as it cuts through her neck. And then what was his name? Carmichael offers his check that he's been that he's been showing off throughout the entire movie, basically saying, you win the bet that you can prove there's paranormal, let me live and I will serve you in hell. And he just gets melted all the shit. And then that's when the documentary phase drops. And now we're seeing inside of Jack's head. Or at least that's the way I interpret it. Jack is sent back to the very beginning, how he got into the TV show and everything, and how he got his contract. And it shows a clip from earlier, except extended this time. Because if you've seen the movie, you know earlier on, towards the opening credits, when Jack is signing his contract, a reporter calls out, Jack, what did you have to sacrifice to get here tonight? Well, in the new clip, towards the end of the movie, it shows the same clip again. But the UBC director says, oh, Jack Delroy's greatest sacrifice is yet to come. And he hands him a goblet, which he drinks. It transfers to where he's sitting in front of these people who were at the Grove drinking the wine. And it basically shows him going through different stages of hell, pretty much is my interpretation, until he finally is sent backstage where it looks like his wife's hospital room from when she was dying. And he sees his wife there, and she's not the happiest. She just basically asks, why would you let it happen? And there's only one way you can fix it. And so she looks at the dagger that was shown earlier in the film as being from Xander Diabo's cult. She shows the dagger, or she looks at the dagger and tells Jack to do it. And so he stabs her in the gut, only for him to snap out of his hallucination and realize he just stabbed Lily in the gut after Lily went berserk and killed everyone. And towards the end, when he realizes what he's done, he screams and drops the knife and drops Lily's body. And he tries to do what Carmichael did to get everyone out of the hypnotism. Dreamer, here, awake, he repeats over and over again as sirens grow closer and closer. And that is the end of the film.
And this is the end of the spoiler section, Jasper. Just next time, try not to make it fast. You're not 2017 James A. Janice. Just kidding. I love you, James, if you ever watch this.
Mr. Boogity, that's not fair. I mean, he is such a good YouTuber, though. I do recommend that you go check him out. He's one of my favorites. Anyway, this is the conclusion of the podcast. I just have a few short words after, but wow, this movie had some deep cuts. But it also had a lot of real life inspirations, some of which I may have missed. So if you are in the YouTube audience, or if there's a way to comment on the Spotify audience, let me know if there's any influences you want me to go over for another episode, if I'm able to make another episode. Because honestly, I love this movie. It's a very special movie to me because I first watched it on my 21st birthday, so that made it fun. But anyway, yeah, if I missed anything, let me know. And hopefully you all enjoyed this podcast. Like I said earlier, my Patreon is up and running. I will link it in my bio on YouTube in case you want to subscribe. Like I said, it starts at $1 a month. You get special things such as behind the scenes, early script releases, stuff like that, where it's going to be a little more special. And for those of you who have come here through other projects of mine, I want to thank you again. And from all of us here at Nocturnal Sideshow Entertainment, we hope you have a very scary day and happy nightmares, boils and ghouls.
the sideshow is closed. Hope you had fun. Next time, it won't be so fun.